Welcome to Motherhood in ADHD. I'm your friend, Patricia Sen. My mission is to be a lighthouse for mothers with ADHD, helping you find your path to success by learning to appreciate your ADHD as an asset. I'm seeking to change the paradigm that ADHD means your life is doomed to be a hot mess. So I'm sharing strategies and encouraging you in your pursuit of happiness to love who you are every day of your ADHD life. Hey there, successful mama. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm so glad that you're here today. Thanks for listening. I recently learned how to Instagram. I'm feeling very proud of myself for doing something new. Sometimes you get stuck in doing the old things, and so I'm still kind of getting the hang of it. But you are welcome to follow me, obviously, at Motherhood in ADHD. So I was looking at this post recently by Wellness with Mark. He was talking about budgeting, and misleadingly ADHD commented that she had never met anyone with ADHD who was good at budgeting. And I was like, me, I'm good at budgeting. I love budgeting and money and finance. I just enjoy it. And I understand that most of the world is not like that, but I do quite like it. She had said something like, please share your secrets with us. And so I thought on it, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a series about money management for ADHD. Then I just kind of sat on it because I wanted to make sure that I always come at these with prayerful consideration on how I deliver things, and I do some research, and my episodes are either spur of the moment, this hit me, and I'm just going to talk about something real quick, or I really thought about it. And this is something that I really was sitting on because money is such a delicate subject. I always would say that the only thing people get more upset about than their money is their kids, because I worked in both of those industries. So before I was a middle school teacher, I worked in banking. And so I got quite a bit of experience in people being angry about both their money and their kids. Anyways, another thing that I do, which is now making me sound like I do a bazillion things. Well, wow. Okay. Is that we have rental properties. And so I do manage that part of our lives. I like to keep my business sense on point. And so I am currently reading Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. And before I lose you, I promise you I'm going to make this as user-friendly as possible. And I really want to share this knowledge because with the proper education, we all can learn how to manage our money. It really is a management, which is like a consistent thing. It's not like you just do the thing and the money magically is all good. You have to really work at it, but we're going to put systems in place so that a lot of it manages itself on its own, so that we can be more strategic in our thinking and not in the nitty-gritty of trying to solve problems and put out fires in the moment. So while I was pondering this whole money issue, I started reading this book, and I realized that even though this concept is directed at business owners, it still applies to us in a personal finance sense. So his whole idea is that when you talk about business, people look at sales and then they subtract their expenses. And what do you have left over? You have your profit. And I love his quote. He says, when you're waiting for the leftovers, at best, you'll get scraps. Just think on that for a second. When you're waiting for the leftovers, at best, you'll get scraps. Now, why is that? Okay, when we look at general accounting principles, which again, stay with me here. I'm not going to get too nitty-gritty into boring things. Basically, they're very logical and they are required for all businesses to kind of be on the same page in figuring out their money. But the problem is they are logical, but humans are not logical. So let's read a little section out of Mike Michalowicz's book so you can hear where I'm coming from on this point. Okay, so I'm in chapter 1 if you happen to want to read this book. He says, logically, general accounting principles make complete sense. It suggests that we sell as much as we can, spend as little as we can, and pocket the difference. But humans aren't logical. One episode of Bridezilla's pretty much proves that point. Just because general accounting principles make logical sense doesn't mean it makes human sense, and that's in quotes. General accounting principles both supersedes our natural behavior and makes us believe bigger is better. So we try to sell more. We try and we try and we try to sell our way to success. We do everything we can to make the top line, this is our revenue, or in this case, if we're talking about our personal stuff, the income, grow so that anything will drip down to the bottom line. It becomes a relentless cycle of chasing after every shiny object disguised as opportunity. I must skip a little further here. Okay. He says, as our monster gets bigger, and he's talking about the monster being our business as an entrepreneur, its appetite gets out of hand. Now we're faced with covering expenses for more employees, more staff, more everything. The monster grows, and it grows, and it grows. Meanwhile, we're still dealing with the same problems, just bigger ones. More empty bank accounts, higher stacks of credit card bills, bigger loans, and an ever-increasing list of quote-unquote must-pay expenses. Sound familiar, Dr. Frankenstein? The general accounting principle's fundamental flaw is that it goes against human nature. No matter how much income we generate, we will always find a way to spend it. All of it. And we have good reasons for all of our spending choices. Everything is justified. Soon enough, whatever money we had in the bank dwindles down to nothing as we struggle to cover every quote-unquote necessary expense. And that's when we find ourselves in the survival trap. A secondary flaw is this. General accounting principles teaches us to focus on sales and expenses first. Once again, it works against our human nature, which urges us to grow what we focus on. It's something called the primacy effect. More on that in the next chapter. We focus on what comes first, so in his equation, sales and expenses, and actually become blind to what comes last. Yes, general accounting principles make us blind to profit. We spend all that we have because we believe we must, and we use the terms like plow back or reinvest to feel good about it. Profit, salary, mere afterthoughts, leftovers. So this just blew me away because I realized that I could apply what he was talking about to the personal side, which is what I had kind of sitting on this because I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to word it. And then here comes this book from my library queue that I had requested a long time ago. And I was like, haha, this is what I'm going to talk about. So when we look at what he was saying, but flip it to our personal income. So the formula usually is sales minus expenses equals profit. But when we talk about our personal lives, it's our income minus our expenses equals our savings. So when we talk about the primacy effect, where we look at what comes first, so our income. So we're always looking at like, how am I going to get another raise? But then when we look at the end of the equation, the savings, even regular normal people brains, savings is so far off, they don't really look that far into the future. But for an ADHD brain, that's like, doesn't even exist. It's so far away. So we're so worried about increasing our income, but the problem is when we get that raise, what do we do with it? We get a bigger house, a new car, we go on vacation, we feel like it's okay to go out for lunch more. And we rationalize all those decisions like living in this different neighborhood is going to give our kids a better school system. Now we have the money to enroll our kids in another activity so we can enrich their lives more, which all those things are good in and of themselves. But when we go back to the formula, here we are so worried about like, how do we get more money? But then we turn around and spend all the money no matter what. It doesn't matter how much you have, you still find a way to spend it. And then when you have ADHD, you have all those impulse buys just thrown in there. I mean, it's lucky anybody has any money. So his whole idea is that your profit has to be set aside first. So instead of your income minus your expenses equals your savings, it would be your income minus your savings equals what you have left to spend on your expenses, which is a mind-blowing moment because most of us don't even think about putting our savings first. But we really do have to change that mindset around of taking care of ourselves first and then figure out what you can do with the leftover money. So how do you decide to put money away? Like, where do I even start? Well, I like that Mike starts with 1%. So whenever you get money in, you put 1% of it into your profit account, or in our case, our savings account. And why does he suggest that? I love it. He's like, look, if you put away 1% of $100, you now have $1 in your savings account and you still have $99 left over. Say I have $100 to spend on a dress for this wedding. You also could probably make it do with $99 to buy a dress for that wedding. Like that 1% isn't going to make a big difference in the way that you function. And the same thing is like if you have $1,000, if you put 1% away, that's $10. You still have $990 to function with. If you can do it with $1,000, you can also do it with $990. There's not a big difference there. So you're starting that baby step to prove to yourself that you can do it. And then you're going to increase that later, but just start with 1%. If you already have a savings plan in place, then I want you to go ahead and bump it up 1%. So everybody's taking a step here. We're all putting 1% away, whether it is 1% because I had 0 or 1% more than what I was doing. Okay. Now your next step is I want you to put this on an auto transfer. So you don't have to think about it. Just one less thing to do. On the day that you get paid, automatically, if you have a direct deposit, you can just say auto debit my account and go put it in the savings account that same day. And when that money is not there in your face, you forget about it and you don't spend it. So the next step is I want you to put that savings account money in somewhere that's hard to get to. Pick like a bank that's like that tiny credit union down the street from your parents' house. So like you got to put in some effort to get your money out. I'm not saying you can't get your money out, but like I want you to have to go through some steps and some effort to get it because I want you to have that process where you have to think about like, do I really want to go take that money out? Is this really worth it? Is it worth going to drive 30 minutes to my parents' house to go get that money? Or do I need to be like, ooh, you know what? I don't need those really cool new ski boots. I'm good. Because when you take that money out of your savings and spend it, you are stealing from yourself. You're stealing from future you. Future you needs that money for retirement or whatever it is that you're setting that savings aside for. And if you take it out now, you are stealing from future you. So I want you to think about that mindset of like, I am taking this money and I'm stealing it. It's not just like, oh, I'm just going to borrow it and then I'll put it back later. No, we all know that we're not going to put it back later. Let's just be real. You're not going to put it back later for a while. If you have a really good reason that you need that money, like, hey, my car broke down and I can't get to work, okay, that's an emergency. But like buying that cool new thing is not an emergency. You don't need it. So figure out where you can make a savings account that it's hard to get to and then have that auto transfer go there. Now, if you get paid like cash or on an unusual schedule or whatever, then you just need to do it at the time that you deposit your money in. Right then, go put the 1% away in the other place. Now, I am not going to talk about retirement plans because that's a whole discussion in itself. So I'm not going to open that can of worms. But what I do want to say about savings in terms of retirement is that if you or your spouse receives a free match on retirement money, like for a 401k or something from the company that you work for, I want you to get that money in that account ASAP because girl, that is free money, free. If you put in $1 and you get matched, that means your company is putting in the dollar also. So now all of a sudden you have $2. You only put in $1. You just got $2. You doubled your money by literally doing nothing but putting it in that account. And then the bonus is in those types of accounts, they're also hard to get to. So there's a penalty, generally speaking, if you take that money out before the retirement age, whatever is set by the government. But we with ADHD need that strong penalty to stick to difficult things. So putting it in that place that you have a huge penalty if you take it out early, that's a good way to be deterred from going and taking that money. So when you sign up for those, it's an auto transfer. You do it with your work and they will automatically put that money into the retirement account for you. And then your company will match. And sometimes they do have like a time limit that you don't actually receive that money until you've worked there like 3 years or something. But if you think about it, the free match is usually something like 5% or 7% of your salary. If you put that money in and then your company is giving you that match, like you're automatically giving yourself a 5 or a 7% raise automatically by doing nothing, which is amazing. I mean, people don't usually get that big of a raise in 1 year. So you're automatically giving yourself that raise every year by contributing that money and having your company match it. So do whatever you need to do to get to that max match money that your company's offering because it's free money. So if you have that option, please take advantage of it. Okay. Overall, homework today is schedule a recurring transfer if you can, or make the habit of when you get paid, putting the 1% away then. And then 2, I want you to write on your calendar 2 months from now that you're going to add to that amount. So if you can, push for another 2%. If not, do just another 1%. So that way, every 2 months, you're increasing a little bit until you get to the point where you're saving 5-10% of your salary or your income or your paycheck, whatever you want to call it. But it's little baby steps will get you there. Don't just start putting money aside if you can't afford it right now. Like you're going to have to make adjustments to your lifestyle. But the thing is, if you're putting it in tiny amounts, you won't notice those tiny adjustments you're making. You won't feel that hurt. If say you automatically put in 10%, you might feel that like, oh, that was hard. I had to make a lot of painful decisions. But if you're just putting that 1% away, you're barely going to notice it. And then you increase again, you're going to barely notice it. And those baby steps will get you to where you want to be. So 70-year-old you is doing such a happy dance right now and saying thank you for the diligence that you took today, no matter how young or old you are, by putting a little bit of that money aside so that 70-year-old you can be a little more comfortable and a little less stressed out. So, successful mama, you can do this. Go for it. I'm excited to see your posts, whether it's in our Facebook community or on Instagram or wherever you find me. I would love to hear the success that you're taking towards being financially stable and not waiting for scraps, because we deserve better than that. So let's talk soon, successful mama. Have an awesome week.
Thank you for listening to Motherhood and ADHD. For more resources, head over to our website, www.motherhoodandadhd.com.